Welcome back. We are now moving into session 5, and this is a new section. This is the first of 2 on systems, things that will make your life a little bit easier, more effective, help you stay dialed in on things, kind of pull different things together. Some of this, we're going to talk just a touch on social media. Some of you are doing a lot of that. Some of you, it's brand new. I'm not a social media expert, but I want to give you just enough to at least consider some of those things. So this next 2 sections, we've gone through strategy. The next 2 sections are going to focus on systems, putting your systems in place as you pull your business together. And the main topic of this one is bringing those action plans to life. You kind of started that process with the business plan, and we led up to this idea of action plan statements. And we're going to spend some time going through some examples of those today. So with that said, let's jump in. A lot to cover. So your homework was a lot of stuff. I hope it's been a good couple weeks, maybe as many as 3 or 4 or 5 weeks since you last were on going through these sessions, since you did session 4, because you had a lot to do. You had a lot to work through. You had a lot to consider. And if you've done all of these things, and I don't mean just check the box, but you've really taken the time to consider things like, well, what is my personal mission statement? What is our 5-year vision, the company vision, those kinds of things? If you've gone through that process of really dialing that in, that will set the tone, that'll set the base for what you're doing going forward with your business. Now today, we're going to try to take those into the action phase. So again, it's almost like you've done the base, now we're going to throw in some intervals. And the way this works with action plan statements is we're really focused in on the goal, and then underneath the goal, you have a strategy, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 strategies, and then for each strategy, you may have 1 or 2 or 3 actions. And what this does is it takes it from the general, kind of the global conceptual stuff, to what does this mean for me today, at this moment, with the time that I have available. So that's where we're going with these action plan statements. That's how you're bringing this business plan to life, is we're saying, okay, we've set all these things out. The last thing we kind of wrapped up with in the last one was setting your strategy statements, identifying those goals and a couple of strategies, and now we're moving into, okay, you've got the goal, you've got the strategy, what's the actual action that I can then take that specific thing and put it into my daily pursuits or incorporate it into the huddles that we'll talk about, those kinds of things. So let me give you an example. For us as a wellness provider, and now I'm talking about U.S. corporate wellness as compared to the Catalyst Coaching Institute, but one of our goals for this coming year is to grow our direct services 30% and our indirect services about 45%. Now, a couple of things about numbers. Be very careful about shooting for the moon type thing. Yes, I believe in setting big goals, but they've got to be realistic. The way this breaks down for us, and this may be related in some way to what you're doing, our direct services, that's when we go to an organization and we provide essentially soup to nuts wellness programming. So we have the portal for them, we've got the coaching, we set up their strategy, we bring in the health risk assessment, all of those components. So those are direct services. That's where we're working directly with the employer, and we're providing those services. That is really the nuts and bolts of what we do with U.S. corporate wellness. Now, a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity, an organization, another wellness company came to us and said, you know what, we love what you do on the coaching side. We would like to utilize your portal and your coaching to supplement some of the things that we're offering. Their focus is more on biometric screenings and those kinds of things. So we now provide many of the wellness services, but it's under their umbrella. They're the boss. It's their program. We are not serving the employer directly. We're serving essentially a competitor, but in this case a partner, with these services. So that's why that 45% is there. We're doing very little of that now. We see some wonderful opportunities going into this coming year, and so 45% is in many ways a ridiculous target, but not in this case because it's something we're doing very little of, and even picking up one or two other partners would actually exceed that 45% because we're just getting out of the gate with that. The 30% is a pretty aggressive goal for the direct services. We actually grew 7% last year, so if that gives you an idea. So there's not a magical number. It really depends on where you are. Most likely, if you're just getting started and you have 2 clients, well, then growing 500% isn't so bad. It means you're going to have 10 clients next year. By the same token, if you've been doing this for a few years and you've got a really good baseline and you've really maxed out a lot of things, and yes, you hope to see some continued growth from going through and participating in the Business Academy, maybe your growth will be a 15% target. So again, there's not a magical number there. This is just an example of ours. So our goal is this target, and people do goals in different ways. We like to have something measurable that we tie into this. So with that, and let me just look at my details. I've got them in front of me here. We've set 7 different strategies to meet those goals. I just want to give you one example, and that is a bigger pursuit on local events. We're a national wellness provider. We're one of only 9 companies to earn full accreditation through URAC as a comprehensive wellness provider. But I think we've made a mistake, or at least we've missed out on an opportunity of pursuing organizations in our backyard. We're in Colorado, plenty of big companies here. And while we do have a handful of clients, we could do a lot better job with that. So one of our strategies for growth in this coming year is to really focus in on local events. What events are coming? Where could we purchase one of the tables for their expo? What speaking opportunities might be available for me to step in for? Those kinds of things. So the strategy is all around local events. But just having, oh, we're going to do local events, it doesn't give you action. And that's where that action comes in. That's where this action plan statement is so critical. So we've got several. I just want to give you 3 examples. We're developing a banner. In fact, we'll have it in the next week or so here that is focused on our Colorado presence. Now, obviously, we're not going to use that at a conference in Nashville or San Diego or Austin, but for the conferences that are here, we've got a special banner that we purchased, designed, that says Colorado-based, nationally renowned. So we're trying to get that, because a lot of folks like that local presence, that local connection, and that may be something that you can take advantage of with your own business. So that's one of the actions. Get the banner out there, use it in these events. Number 2, we've gone to some of our team members and said, hey, anybody interested in being our representative at these expos? Because I simply can't cover everything, and Susanna can't cover everything. So the first person we asked was like, yeah, that'd be great, and she's going to be outstanding at it. We just know that from past history. So that's in place. That was an action that needed to take place. It's in place moving forward. And then the last one is we developed this website, thewellnessspeaker.com, about 2 years ago, and we need to enhance it. We need to tweak it. We need to add some things. We've had some interesting things, fortunate things happen over the last year that should make that an opportunity where maybe I can get opportunities as a speaker at some events that in the past maybe they never even considered me. So so those become 3 very specific actions that we put into our calendar, and we've got the first 2 are taken care of at this point. The 3rd one we've started. We'll continue to process that. But do you get the idea? You want to take this down from goal. We're trying to get here. Okay, great. How are you going to do that? What's your focal area? Boom, that's our strategy. Okay, that's a good strategy, but what does that mean in terms of day-to-day activities and actions and pursuits? Boom, boom, boom. And again, you may have multiples of those, and I've given you an example here. And this is something we actually didn't make this your homework for this month. So I'm just going to ask you, even though it's not a homework assignment, please take the time to go through, take your strategy statements that you came up with the last time, and turn them into action. Because those actions will then drive this next stuff that we're going to, next set of ideas and concepts that we're going to talk about. So you got your goal, and you may only have one goal. Maybe you have two. We have two, okay? So, and those are kind of overarching. So even though we've been around a long time, we've got really two different areas between U.S. Corporate Wellness and Catalyst Coaching Institute. We really broke it down into two specific goals total. So you may have two, you may have one, maybe you have three, but it's going to be a very limited number. Where your number starts to build is your strategies. So as I mentioned, we have 7 strategies for goal number 1, and we have 5 strategies for goal number 2. Underneath those, you've got your actions listed, and you may have anywhere from 1 to 5, maybe 6. You know, don't go too off the, don't go too crazy on this stuff. But we do have a couple. I'm just looking at our business plan right here. We've got one that has 5 actions. We've got one with 3, another with 3, a couple with 2. There's another one with 3. So break this down the way it makes sense for you, but it's a 3-step process. What's your goal? What's your strategy? And what are those actions that then you're going to translate into your daily activities? So daily activities, speaking of this whole concept, what does that look like in terms of rolling this out in your Monday? Okay, it's Monday morning, now what? Well, one of the things I want to really encourage you to do, and this takes discipline, it takes a commitment to it, and it takes another person. You can have a couple, but at least one other person. And this could be maybe in your cohort meetings that you've got coming up, or maybe you've already started with. You feel like you've got a lot in common with somebody. Well, great. Reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to do a huddle? What, you know, would you be up for a Monday morning huddle or a Friday afternoon huddle? Whatever it is that you, or Wednesday, whatever it is that you use. What this is it is a brief, and I mean brief. This is not a strategy session. This is not a whole bunch of brainstorming. This is literally, here's where I'm at, here's what I did, here's where I'm going. So it may be 10 minutes every Monday morning. 7 a.m., you're on the phone with somebody from your cohort, somebody you knew in school, maybe someone you're in business with. It doesn't matter. They need to get you. They need to get your business. They get to understand it, but they don't have to be your business partner to do this. It's a sounding board. So 10 to 30 minutes. 30 minutes should be the absolute longest. It should never go over 30, and most of these huddles should be 10 to 15 minutes. Right? Second thing, everybody comes prepared. And we're going to talk about this in a minute with another option of these that you'll do more on a monthly basis. But if people aren't coming prepared, they're not the right person for you. So critical. What you're going to focus on is very simple. Your KPIs, so those are your key performance indicators. What happened last week? What do you expect to be by the end of this week? Number 2, previous week's highlights. What happened last week? What went well? What was accomplished? This is more for you than for them, for you to realize, you know what? Last week seemed like a tough week, but I actually got some good things done. And then where's your focus for this week? And that's why I like them. Personal opinion is make a Monday morning. There's no magic to that, but it's a nice reset of your week. So previous week's highlights, and what am I planning on doing this week? What am I committing to doing this week? Because you can review those things, and I would say if you're the partner in this, so when the other person's talking, I would just jot down what does the person commit to for this week. And then next week when you're on the huddle with them, you simply pull out your list and go, okay, Brad, you said you were going to do this, this, and this. How'd that go? That's prepared. And then the last thing is assistance needed. Is there something that you need? And again, we're not trying to create a strategy or brainstorming session here. This is literally, you know, I don't know how to do this with this. Do you know anybody that might be able to help me? Or I need some accountability in this area. So brief hit and run. This is a hit and run meeting. This is not a retreat. So Any assistance needed? And where do we go with that? All right. All right. Now, the peer discussion group, this is a different flavor. This may be an hour to 4 hours a month. Very different situation than the weekly. The weekly huddle is just boom, boom, in, out, done. The cohort group, a lot goes on with this. And for the first 6 months, your cohort may feel the need for this. You may want to go out and pursue something else as well. But that's why we designed it. That's why it's part of the Business Academy. There's a huge value in having 3, 4, 5, 6 people together on a monthly basis and talking through stuff at a deeper level. So these are different. You'll see, and you still see that everyone comes prepared. By the way, the reason I put an asterisk there is I just want you to do the math on this. Let's say there are 7 of you in your cohort, and you don't come prepared. You're kind of off the cuff. You're trying to, just throw some stuff out there. Well, if each person gets 15 minutes, which is a pretty common way to do it, 15 minutes, you're wasting 6 other people's 15 minutes. So your lack of preparation is wasting 90 minutes when you combine the other folks' time. So it's important in the huddle. It's important times 5 or 6 or 7 when we talk about your peer discussion groups. Strict agenda. In the cohort groups, the facilitator will take care of that for you. They'll keep you on track. If you coordinate one of these in the future, or if you're a part of one of these in the future, I would encourage it. Maybe bring it up. And by the way, where else can you find these? I've been involved with several of them. I try to change it up every year or two just to get a different voice in my ear. But there are groups like through your small business development council and in your city, in your big city nearby you. The chamber has something called the CEO Exchange. The Alternative Board is a for-profit organization. That's what they do, is they organize these huddles. What else? There's something called Convene that does them as well. Be prepared to spend a little money on these things. Now, if you go through the small business development, not quite as much. It's a little less expensive, but the others will be a little more expensive. And again, you can organize these yourselves. I've tried that. We met like 3 times, and people kept having stuff come up, and so you may want to tie in some sort of, it sounds silly, but some sort of incentive that if you miss more than 1 meeting out of 3 or 1 out of 4, then you provide lunch for the group the next time. Something that just keeps people realizing, hey, this is important. If we're all committing to this, we're really all committing to this. It can't be a second priority. So again, strict agenda, lay out what you're going to go through, keep everyone accountable to it. I would suggest one of the ways of doing it is literally say, look, there are 6 of us. We've got 2 hours. Let's do 10 minutes, just kind of what's going on in life, and have a few minutes left at the end in case we run slightly over with somebody. But we're going to set a stopwatch, and everybody gets 15 minutes, and that'll be an hour and a half, start to finish. And we're going to go through something called the stop, start, continue here in a minute. That might be a great resource to use as your kind of sub-agenda for these. Within these cohorts or within your peer discussion group, the things you're going to focus on during that 15 minutes is highlight your progress, what's been happening, kind of your weekly huddle expanded. Brainstorm solutions. Come to your cohort with your struggle. Hey, here's what I'm looking for. Can you help me with this? It's amazing when you get 5, 6 people together, even if they're not in your exact same industry, they're struggling with similar business issues. It can make a big impact. And then build in that same accountability. Similar to what you're doing in your weekly huddles, but this is on a broader level with more people saying this is the, and I would say no more than 2 things that you want to commit to, but say, hey, I'm going to come back and report on this thing, what I did, what my decision was, what the process was we put in place, with these 2 things, but keep it minimal. Don't have a laundry list of here are the 17 things I'll report back on. et cetera. So those are your peer discussion groups. And again, the cohort fits that for the first 6 months, but then that's over. So you want to make sure that you've got a plan going forward because it's very, very valuable. Now, I mentioned that there's this thing called a stop, start, continue, and this can be used on your own, for yourself, where you're doing a personal review of kind of how am I doing. It could be done if you have team members or partners or employees. You could have them do it with you. You could do it with them. Or you could make this kind of your basic agenda for your cohort meetings or your huddles. It's very basic, and that's why I love basic stuff I can get my arms around. Simple to remember, simple to implement. You don't need some fancy form. It's literally stop, start, continue. Grab a piece of paper, write stop at the top, write start about midway in, and write continue about, leave yourself some space to write, but kind of 2/3 down there. And then answer those questions. What are the things I'm doing now that negatively impact my effectiveness? And I will stop immediately. Well, you know what they are. You probably have to sit and think, well, I check email too often. I'm jumping on Facebook. I'm chatty. I'm checking my phone. I don't know. I'm using all technology things because I'm sitting here at my desk. But you get the idea. What are things that you're doing now that if you were to stop would make you more effective? Write those down. And again, this is not trying to come up with 17 things. 1 or 2. Because you're going to do this on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly at a minimum. Monthly is a good schedule. And maybe you want to do it weekly. It's part of your huddle. The second one is start. What is something I'm not currently doing, but if I were to start, would make me far more effective? That I am committed to starting. This is not just a pie in the sky thing. This is, and I'm going to start. It's a commitment. And finally, continue. What are things I'm currently doing that actually are working pretty well and are important aspects? And you don't write down it. You don't go, well, I breathe, I eat, I drink water. You're talking about what are some of your key areas that you want to make sure make it into your daytime or your weekly, monthly action plan. So focus on those with those continue things. So stop, start, continue. Very basic, very powerful. All right, bunch of tools. This is our systems section, right? So I want to give you some tools. And as I said, I'm not a social media expert. I want to give you a few basics to think about with LinkedIn especially, and touch on a couple of other things. The ACT database, nothing magical about ACT. It's the one that I use. I'll walk you through that a little bit. Rescue time, I mentioned it in a previous session. I want to come back to it here just in case you didn't catch it originally. Rescue time, and we don't have any connection with rescue time. It's just something that I found that's been very helpful to me. If you do find that you're spending too much time on email or maybe checking Facebook a few more times during the day than you think is most valuable to you, rescue time is pretty powerful, and it's free. They have a premium version, but if you set it up, you give it access to your computer basically, and then you tag the things that are very valuable, moderately valuable, kind of playtime, those kinds of things. And then you can see a report every day. You can say, okay, you were at your desk for 10 hours, you were on email for 3, you were on Facebook for 45 minutes, you're on LinkedIn for an hour, you were working on a PowerPoint presentation for 2 hours, et cetera, et cetera. So you get a review because you know the old rule. What gets measured gets done. If you're having trouble getting something done, figure out a way to measure it. I can promise you it'll get done. So I don't have a separate slide on rescue time. Just want to mention it there. I think just Google rescue time and you can sign up for an account there. HIPAA compliant notes, schedule, follow-up. You know that you're getting free access to use the Wellness Nation during the 6 months of this program. So I want to walk you through how to utilize those things. And then we're going to talk about something called the 10-minute daily investment. I'm just going to do a hit and run on it, but I will tell you, if you will do this consistently, it will change your outcomes pretty dramatically. So let's go ahead and jump into this whole idea of social media. I've got a slide I'm going to take you through on the LinkedIn, but just the awareness. And again, some of you are totally, you get this, you've got it dialed in, you're spending 30 minutes a day on each one of these, and an extra 30 minutes on LinkedIn, and you've got everything set up and your profile, and you've got people checking your stuff, and you're connected with several hundred or 1,000 people, and this is how people find you as a wellness coach. Congratulations. If you're not, or if this is just play for you, this is an opportunity. I actually took a course at our local chamber, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, and some very helpful tips. Look for those courses. I'm not your resource for that. I just want to get you started on the path to not ignoring this as an opportunity. Now, with that said, don't skip traditional networking because you're doing all the social networking. But as important as that comment is, we can't ignore social networking anymore. It's just too important. So you got a Facebook account. You don't want to inundate people with your coaching stuff, but once every week or two, pop something up there. And we're going to talk about how to do a post in LinkedIn. That's a great place. You don't need to have, if you're using the Wellness Nation as your site, you can put your post, if you're going to do some basically blog posts, that's not a service obviously it's not a service available through Wellness Nation. It'd be insane to have all of you guys doing different blog posts, but you can do those in LinkedIn. So you don't need that on your website. And then you could link to that post that talks about whatever the value and impact of coaching, or a testimonial from somebody, and how that's been really neat to see. You could link to that in your Facebook account, or in your Twitter account, or in your Google Plus account. Okay? So don't ignore these, I guess, is the biggest emphasis here. Let's talk about LinkedIn a little bit. This is, I think personally, this is your most important one. Now, again, you can do a lot of advertising through Twitter and Facebook and some of those. Google Plus is big in terms of people finding you online, but let's face it, we're not that big as U.S. Corporate Wellness, and most likely you're not either. And so worrying about where we fall in the ranking system should be the least of our concerns. Let's have people who find us directly, and social media can help us do that. So LinkedIn, and I'm starting with the basics because I've come across so many folks, a lot of wellness coaches especially, who they've got a LinkedIn account, but it's got nothing. So first of all, update your profile. Basic stuff. Make sure that it describes who you are, what you do. You've written all this stuff out. As you created your business plan, as you went through all these things in the first 4 sessions, you've created this. Now take those things you've created and don't put your old business plan in there, but take those defining statements. Take those, what makes you different. Put them into your post. It's a great place to put to pull from for your profile. Your picture. Your picture doesn't have to be a professionally done headshot, but it needs to look professional. I don't care what you say about first impression. Oh, we shouldn't make first impressions based on how people look. Folks, we do. So if you got a picture of, I don't know, I'm not going to pick on anybody, but you know what I mean. You've seen them. And, you're, for example, well, I'm not going to use an example. I don't want to. Just make it professional. It needs to be a headshot. They can tell who you are. It's not just you at a party with your arm around somebody. This is your resume. See LinkedIn as your resume. What picture would you include with your resume? Very important. Number of contacts. You know what? There's not a magic number here. Once you get over 500, it just says 500 plus. I think I've got 2,200 contacts right now. I don't know all those people. but build it up. When you see somebody with a profile that has 75 contacts, you figure they're not really using LinkedIn. I would try to get minimum of 150, 200, somewhere in that range. And it's actually pretty easy to do. LinkedIn gives you just like Facebook recommends people that are probably your friends. LinkedIn does the same. If you want to connect to me, feel free, and then you can. That'll give you kind of second degree. The way LinkedIn works is first, second, third degree contacts. So your first degree, those are people that you're literally connected with. Second degree means you're connected with somebody who's connected with these people or that person that you're looking at. And then third degree is really not very connected with that person. But in terms of reaching out to folks, it makes it much easier because the search engine, you can pull up your first degree contacts or your first and second degree contacts, and it makes it much more likely that person's going to respond to you. As far as groups within LinkedIn, it's a great opportunity, but one of the things I want to remind you of is be careful about which route you're going. And you can go with both. I'm not saying, oh, only focus on your audience or only focus on your peers, but you're going to find plenty of groups of wellness professionals, wellness coaches, health and wellness coaches. That's fine. That might be helpful. You might learn some good things from them by staying up to date in those groups. But realize those are your peers. You're not going to get business from those folks. Your audience, that's who you're reaching out to. So what types of groups would you have interesting things to say to or engage with? That would be a completely different type of group. So when you're selecting the groups, and there's no limit to the number of groups except for you don't have endless amount of time. So it might be smarter to pick 4 groups that apply to your target audience. Remember, you identified that in your business plan. And 4 groups that are more peers, or maybe 2 groups that are your peers. So it's a great chance to participate if your profile looks good. Great chance to link with other folks, similar business, or potentially people that are looking for you. Now, this idea of updates and posts, you've got 2 basic options in terms of non-group stuff. So with the group stuff, you can post things in there, questions, comments, pretty much whenever you want, unless you're advertising something, and then you shouldn't put that in the group stuff. Unless it's some kind of a service for people, like a free webinar, for example. People often do that. But the updates and posts, you can do an update anytime, almost like you would do a Facebook or a Twitter post. You can just update, boom, here's something going on, and here's a link to something. A post is a little different, and this is what I mentioned earlier, where you can utilize LinkedIn as your blog post without needing a separate place for that on a website. So just go into your, actually I think it's right on the home page, it says posts. Click that and you can put a post in. And you can put a picture in to go with it, or a link to an article or a video or something. And then those take precedence when people are searching. They'll see your different posts. They'll see, sometimes LinkedIn sends out, Brad Cooper just posted such and such, so those are like update supreme. They're update to the nth degree. A post is much more purposeful. An update is just kind of a quick hit and run. The last thing on LinkedIn is the search feature, and this is very valuable to you. Let's say that you've decided you're going to work with organizations between 50 and 100 employees in your state, and you want to find the owner or the HR director for that company. Well, you can go into the search, and you can search. If you know that person's name, you can search by the name and then ask if they'd like to connect. Nice way to do it. Now, be careful, because one of the things that drives LinkedIn members crazy is you get to connect, and all of a sudden you get it, hey, our business is awesome. Would you listen? It's like, really? Seriously? But if you're personalizing it, so you connect with this person and you say, I'm going to be speaking at such and such event. It sounds like you're going to be there. I'd love to meet you if that works out with your schedule. Make it personal, just like you would want. Make it personal. So don't overdo that, but realize that's an easy feature within LinkedIn. If you go with the premium option with LinkedIn, and I've done it in and out, we are not premium members right now. We've done it for a few months, and then we pulled back, and then we've done it for a few months. You're paying a monthly fee for that. It may be worth it, depending on what you're doing. It is. They do have some pretty powerful tools. But don't just spend the money to spend the money. Make sure you have a purpose for doing those things. Okay? So hopefully it gives you a basic starting point on the LinkedIn components where you can get to this role a little bit. Now, contact management system. This is really, really important. And we use the ACT database, ACT, exclamation point. You can look it up. They've got a bunch of stuff. I do not stay updated on their, I don't have the latest, greatest one. I think the one I've got is from 3 years ago. But what you're looking for with the database is, or your contact management system, call it whichever you prefer, is a place to capture your not only contact information, so name, phone number, state they're in, but ability to tag key opportunities. So you had a really good conversation with this employer, and they seem really interested, and they asked for a proposal. They've got systems, and again, ACT is the one we use. I think there are 100 different ones out there, so do your research, see what one makes most sense for you. In fact, I think LinkedIn actually can serve as your contact management system. I just haven't gone that route. So it allows you to tag key opportunities. It's a place where you can put emails. I can go back, and this is where it gets really interesting. If you're disciplined about doing this, you can go back 5, 6, 7 years later and look at the email discussions that you had with that person. Or if you're recording, not recording, literally recording, but jotting a few notes down about a phone call you had, well, you can go back and literally, not an exaggeration at all, I've just, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, had a conversation with someone saying, it's amazing, we started talking 7 years ago. And it's really exciting to see things starting to come to fruition. So you can look back on that, and that's really nice to have. Yes, you can search for people in your email box and find some of those things, but it's nice to have it all in one place. So contact management, much more important if you're pursuing employers or you think you might at some point, but not a bad thing to have in general. Keeps all your contact info in one place. You can tag those key opportunities, records those discussions, and frankly, don't buy some super system. The basics are enough. In fact, if you wanted to start by just putting together a spreadsheet with name, phone, email, and notes about conversation, that would probably get you by for now. You just want something basic. We started using ACT database 9+ years ago. We've stuck with that. It works great for us. All right, now I'm going to take you through the portal in 2 sessions. In the next session, we're going to take you through kind of how to use the portal with your clients and that kind of thing. Hopefully at this point, you've already played around with it. You've already gone in as a client would see. You've played with the notes. You've recorded some notes with your clients. But I just want to give you some of the basics so you know what's there, what the potential is in case you haven't looked at it. Now, the biggest thing with this resource is the HIPAA compliance. Okay, you need that obviously, but it just makes you more efficient. It's a system that allows you to be more efficient with what you're doing. So within the notes section, so we're not going to look at the portal so much. We're going to focus just on the notes and the schedule for today. But you've got access to all their contact information. Boom, right there, every one of your clients. And then you can look up there at the top. You can pull up their HRA. You can pull up their goals they've set. You can see how they're progressing with their BMI. And then on the left-hand side, that's the current note. And we use a SOAP note format, so subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. And there's unlimited space. So type away. And then under that last note, if this were not just a sample, you would see there's your most recent note. So that allows you not to have to pull up another note, look at that, come back. You have, boom, immediate access to every one of those comments that you've made in past. By the way, for those who don't come out of healthcare background with the SOAP note, S is subjective. It's what they tell you. O is the objective stuff, anything objective that you talked through or they've measured. A is your assessment, what you're assessing from your discussion, and P is your plan. Where are you doing, or what are you doing going forward, or what are they doing as they go forward? You can tag their goal category, what stage of change they're in, and you can note that you encourage contact with someone else, like a physician or a physical therapist or whoever it might be. Now, in terms of efficiency, because that's a big part of this systems thing, the resources in the portal, so if somebody's logged in and they're involved in a team challenge that you're doing, well, the next time they log in, if you tag a resource for them, it shows up. Boom, it's right there for them. And then this email, our coaches asked us to put this in place. This is a huge time saver for you, so please make use of it. Essentially, it allows you to write the follow-up email to that person right after you finish the coaching session. And then set the date. If you want that to go out in 2 weeks, a week, a month, you set the date and it'll send it on that date. You can note the date that you completed the coaching session, just to keep track for your records. And then if you want to, you don't have to do any of these things. If you'd like to, you can track the length of the coaching session as well, just to have a general idea. The schedule, again, you've probably settled with this right now already at this point, but just to give you an idea, when you fill in the times that work for you. So if you only do coaching on Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to 2, that's fine. You just go into the calendar, you set those times, and you're ready to go. When they log in, they being your clients log in, they see what's available, they can pick that time, and you'll get a note that they've picked that time. So you don't have to be checking the schedule every 15 minutes. You'll get a note when they pick a time. And then you can filter the stuff. So if you want to pull up only your active clients, if you've got 3 coaches, we've got a hospital system that uses the Wellness Nation portal with their employee wellness program. We're not doing, it's one of those indirect programs. We're not doing the coaching. The coaches are doing that coaching using our portal. Well, so they've got several coaches. If you get to that point where you've got 2 or 3 coaches working for you, this would allow you to pull up just those that you're working with or all active clients, etc. Last big thing here before we get to the kind of personal reflection questions is this idea of a 10-minute daily investment. Again, so simple but powerful. If you do it, not if you just listen to me and go, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But if you actually do this, 10 minutes, probably not even 10 minutes, probably 3. But you look at your schedule, you remind yourself, what are my critical success factors? Are those in my schedule? Did I account for that for this week? You look at the day's schedule, what's on there, and you prioritize it based on the value. Stephen Covey has this thing, he talks about big rocks. And this, he actually has this great visual where he's got this container and he pours in sand, and then he pours in some pebbles, and then he pours in some some stones. And then the big rocks, which in his analogy represent those things that are relationships, building that business, exercise, eating well, those kinds of things, they don't fit. They don't fit at all, because you've filled it with all the gravel and sand and stones and all that kind of stuff. But then he takes it all out. Actually, he has a second example because he doesn't want to have all this stuff mixed together. But he starts over and he says, let's put the big rocks in first, those things that really matter. And then let's add some stones and some pebbles and some sand. Now it all fits. And you'd be amazed. That simple process, if you will put that into your life, and that makes most sense on a weekly basis, of going through and saying, what are the big rocks? I'm going to put those in first. Okay, now the meetings will fit around that. Now the assignments will fit around that, etc. But prioritizing those big rocks, making sure they're in there, and then go. It's one of those just mental delays when you just have a list of stuff that you need to do. If you'll take 1 minute and literally, and this is so old school, but it makes a difference. and you'll go, this is priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now your brain can ignore everything that doesn't have the 1. Let's just do the 1. Okay, 1's done, 2. You're not thinking, well, you know, I could do this or that. No, it's determined, go forward. Lastly, a little self-evaluation, then you get your homework. Frequency, I don't know what's best for you. Once a month, maybe once a week to start with. But ask yourself these questions. Am I focusing on the urgent, the stuff that just comes, the email that comes across, the phone call that comes across, or am I really focused on what's important? And that's why you put that whole business plan together, is to keep you focused on what's important. Are you following that? Number 2, is anything distracting me from growing my business? What are those distractions? The answer is obviously yes for all of us. So what are they, and what can you do about it? The third one, am I stubborn about a personal growth area? Something I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I met this woman, and she was talking through her business, and it's actually going out of business. And she made the comment that, you know, she knows she should network, and she knows she should go out and talk with people, because that's how they get to know her and how she's going to grow it. But that's just not her, and she's not going to do that. And it's just, she's not doing it, period. And I was like, wow, okay, that's fine. That's her choice. She's free to choose that. But she's not free from the consequences. And is there some personal growth area for you? Maybe it is networking. Maybe it is making phone calls. But are you being stubborn about not growing in that area, and it's affecting your business? Number 4, am I living out the advice I give others in terms of sleep, exercise, fueling, etc.? And then finally, the F5 overview. This is something, and I know we're going a little bit long with this session, but I want to make sure we include these in here, because this is a great way, not just at year end. If you read through our blog post, you know we hit this year end pretty consistently, but on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. All of these things, if you ignore any of these 5, you cannot maximize the others. It's impossible. Faith, family and friends, fuel and fitness, finances, pretty self-explanatory. Field of play represents your hobbies and your work. The concept of we choose to walk onto that field, whether it's our work or our hobbies. If we don't want to be there, walk off the field. Stop whining. So the F5 overview can be a very valuable tool as well. All right, so your action plan prior to the next session, not quite as much homework as last time, but your action plan statements. The whole concept of goal, strategy, actions, lay that out. Actually, I said I wasn't going to have you do that, but it turns out I was remembering the wrong slide. So yes, please do that. You may only have one goal, you may have a couple of strategies, and you may have a couple of action plans, but jot those down prior to the next one. Second thing, your initial stop, start, continue. Take a piece of paper, write stop, start, continue, and identify each one of those. And then number 3, identify someone, and it could be over the phone. It doesn't have to be someone in your office or in your home office, or it could just be a quick phone call. And if you're doing your cohorts, maybe it's somebody who's in the cohort with you. But identify someone for that weekly huddle before we get into the next session. Next session is session 2, or part 2 of systems. And we're going to focus on supplemental services, kind of building on some of the things we talked about today with LinkedIn and Rescue Time and that kind of thing. We'll look at the couple of aspects of the portal, how the health risk assessment will help your business, and then time optimization. I've had an opportunity to do courses around the country on management, and I just pulled a smidgen of that, because your most valuable resource is you and the way you use your time. So I'm going to give you just a few basic tips on how you can make the most of that as we get into the next session. So get that homework done, and we'll see you at the next one.